I was able to get away with not having to announce my queerness for most of my career. I never really hid it, but the machismo definitely was always front and center, and as a barrier, kept people from digging too deep. So that was something that coming out as the executive director of Outfest was one of those oh, I guess I'm out now. No going back. And it's funny to watch different family members that have always been supportive of me, but are yeah, you get it now,
He is an out and proud Latino who serves as the executive director of the world-renowned organization Outfest. We are pleased to welcome to our show today, Damien Navarro.
Welcome, Damien.
Hey, team.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, so excited that we have a Latino representing the head at Outfest. This is so exciting.
It's pretty insane. I can tell you, the first night of my coronation, how many primas and primos came up to me and gave me a little side hug. They're finally, somebody's in there.
Well, we are super proud. When I found out, I was this is what we need. Thank you, Jesus. But tell us a little bit. What has been the whole journey like?
Well, I mean, as a young queer kid of brown color in San Gabriel Valley, there wasn't a lot of choices about getting into film back then. And it was funny because for years, I knew that my family had helped build sets and had come out from El Paso every summer to work in Hollywood, but that was about it. So I didn't know that this was what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a doctor or a football player or a police officer. So all those things that pretty much San Gabriel Valley.
Are also
or a race car driver.
But when we were, because I'm gonna just go back a little bit to when we were in the green room and you were telling me there's a reason why you thought those could be your careers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, as a Latino in Los Angeles, you don't have many choices other than the neighborhoods that you grew up in. So just what you see is what you kind of get as far as the slate of things you have the opportunities for. So, police officer was right up there because my whole family were all police officers. And I was okay, well, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. And it wasn't until my father who, I can't imagine how much stress it must have been to have this conversation with me, but convinced me to not take the path of the family and to do something different, and had seen something in me that he really wanted me to explore. And so then film school, Cal State Fullerton, go Titans. And this magical career in advertising and media and entertainment, all just kind of budded organically by following not only my dream, but also finally finding encouragement from a lot of people. But this is my second chapter career. And Outfest is one of those things that I got to kind of come full circle in storytelling and take everything I've learned with conviction and do something different. So I'm excited to be here.
But as a Latino, what was it like coming to terms with who you are, and what was the response from your family? And were they supportive? How did that go?
Well, I like to say that, I was able to get away with not having to announce my queerness for most of my career. I never really hid it, but, the machismo definitely was always front and center, and as a barrier, kept people from digging too deep. So that was something that coming out as the executive director of Outfest was one of those oh, I guess I'm out now. No going back. And it's funny to watch different family members that have always been supportive of me, but are yeah, you get it now.
But even with us Latinos, we always know, we just don't talk about it.
Oh, totally. Yeah, and there's so many documentaries now about these the quintessential people that we grew up with that our parents never talked about. What was his name? The gay Liberace.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but it took a lot. It was something that it was strength that I felt like I had to get buy-in from my family because especially coming into this role at this time, anything that comes out of your mouth, like what I just said, could be used against you. And I'm loud and I say what I mean. And so it was a lot of you better be on the right side of history and really have the conviction to do the good work if you want to get into a role like this today. So it was all of those things that kind of came together at the same time.
Something that you said earlier that kind of struck me is when you said that your dad talked to you or convinced you to not follow his path of becoming a police officer. Mm-hmm. I think that's so interesting because usually we hear the fathers wanting their sons to follow their footsteps. Do you think that's part of what's molded you and gotten you to where you are now? Because it sounds like your father was always supportive if he saw something that maybe you didn't even see at the time.
I think that's exactly right. And that's something that I'm trying to encourage when we talk about the stories that we want to see. whether it's how we're represented. But a lot of times it's just not us going through our queer lives. It is the family members around us that also need to see themselves represented in a different way, and that break that cycle. Because, you know, I always say, like, especially around my brown and black Latinas and Latinos and women that I come that I've come in front of with the community, of asking questions, like, it is the familial stresses that we have to show up for our families that sometimes keep us from succeeding in the ways that type of level of time and dedication requires us to do. And so we're at these like pools. And so when my dad did that, he like cut that chain, you know, and broke that, because that was something that always all we know is what we see. And if there's nothing out there past these like neighborhoods, how do we ever expect to grow, you know, past that? And it is and you hear so many stories of those that have made it, that you hear of one family member that did that.
So we're gonna take a quick break, and we will be right back with more of Damien right here on the Q Agenda.